Hello and welcome to Stories Mother Told. Today's story is another one from Zambia. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Let me take you back to Africa. Today's story is titled The Wax Maidens. There was once a woman, a hunter's wife, living in a little village deep in the woods. She was very clever in making dolls and other figures out of clay, wood gum, and beeswax. She used to give them away to little children in her village. During the rainy season, her husband would collect a number of honeycombs and store the honey in earthen pots or gourds. The woman gathered the wax from the combs and used it for her own amusement. Once, she had gathered enough wax to mold two beautiful maidens, as large as real human beings. When the work was completed, she was herself so struck with their beauty and grace that she wished intensely for them to come alive and sing and talk to her. In all her prayers to her ancestral spirits, she asked for this. Sure enough, the ancestral spirits listened, and the wax maidens came alive. This was a great occasion for the whole village to celebrate. Life became very pleasant for the hunter and his wife when they had these two daughters of their own. After a long time, when everyone had accepted the wax maidens as normal human beings, a young farmer from another village happened to see them when they were sitting in the cool shade under a tree. Not knowing who they really were, he wondered that such wax-like pale beauties could exist in the world. Full of admiration for them, he returned to his own village. Since that day, he could think of nothing else. He wondered if there were strange, beautiful spirits who haunted young men, or whether they were real human beings whom one could marry. He was all the more thoughtful because he was a married man, and wondered whether his first wife would allow him to marry more wives. But he was desperately in love with the two maidens and pined away thinking of them. Observing his dejection, his first wife asked for the reason. Reluctantly, he revealed to her what had happened. Being a dutiful wife, she gave him permission to marry the wax maidens, on condition that they too shared in the housework and hard-tilling work in the field, because she honestly believed that the wives could together greatly increase their wealth. This was enough encouragement for the young farmer. He hastened to the wax maidens' parents with his proposal of marriage. His status in life satisfied them. His straight and honest conduct won the parents' admiration. They agreed to celebrate the marriage when the young farmer paid them 8 head of cattle, 4 goats, and 6 hens as the lobola, or the bride price, for the much valued wax maidens. However, the parents warned him that their daughters were delicate creatures who should be treated very gently. They should not be allowed to work in hot and sunny places, nor allowed to exert themselves too much. If he neglected this warning, they would melt away. In his over-eagerness to marry them, the foolish young farmer agreed to these conditions. However, he did not reveal this truth to his first wife, for fear that she would scold him for marrying useless women and prevent the marriage. After the ceremony, the young farmer proudly brought the beautiful brides home. The moment they set their feet in the house, the first wife realized what a tremendous mistake it was. The maidens looked so dainty that she knew they had never done any housework at all. Their hands were so soft and sleek, they were utterly unfit for hard work in the fields. They walked so straight that they could never carry loads on their heads nor babies on their back. What a waste of the lobola. Besides, she noticed day by day they were both in great dread of the fire. They refused to cook food and always preferred to eat cold things. They avoided long, exhausting walks and generally became tired all too soon. Most of all, they would never venture out into the open, sunny fields to do the important work of the farmer. For a few months, the first wife tolerated this dainty nonsense and carried on with all the chores single-handed. Soon, however, the additional work of catering for the lazy women proved too much for the simple woman. It was infuriating. While she toiled away like a mule, the two pale creatures enjoyed the cool comfort of the house. Tearfully, the bitter woman complained to her husband about the attitude of his new wives. The foolish man only laughed, because it suited him perfectly to have two beautiful women to entertain him with sweet songs and talk, while a hard-working woman looked after all the other chores in the house. He never explained to her the reason for their laziness, but carried on without paying any heed to his first wife's complaints. Seeing her husband's heartless behavior, the first wife confided in her neighbors, who advised her to use her wit to extract work from the lazy women when the husband was not in the house. Since that day, she pretended to be kind to the wax maidens in her husband's presence, but when he was away, she sought hard work for the girls to do. She demanded obedience as the first wife and supervised all their chores untiringly. But the hard work severely told on the poor helpless creatures. The waxen beauty began to wear from their face and hands. They became lean and listless. Nevertheless, the revengeful wife drove them into the field to till the land. The elder one ran to the field. In great alarm, the younger maiden begged for mercy, because she feared her sister would surely melt away in the hot sun. "Nonsense!" retorted the first wife. "No woman ever melts away by working in the sun." Under the midday sun, the elder maiden actually began to melt. The wax dripped down from her body and ran onto the soil. The young sister watched helplessly, because she could not go to her rescue. By evening, she had melted so much that only a big toe from her foot remained on the field. In the cool of the evening, the young one ventured out to collect the toe and placed it in a pot of cold water. Not wishing to stay in the house any longer, she went to her mother's house, lamenting her sister's fate. When the young husband returned in the evening, his first wife was still enjoying her leisure, believing the wax maidens to be at work. But the food was not cooked, the field was not tilled, and the wax maidens were nowhere to be seen. Frantic with anxiety for the safety of his beloved wax maidens, the young husband ran to the village of the maidens, only to learn the sad news and to see the only remaining wax toe of the beauty. Due to the long walk and her heavy heart, the young sister too had melted into a grotesque lump of wax, beyond anyone's recognition. Tearing off into the dark night, an anguished cry escaped the lips of the distracted husband as he blindly ran into the woods, never to return. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. As usual, please do not forget to rate and review the podcast on iTunes and any other platforms that you do listen on, as this goes a long way to help the podcast. If there are any stories you would like to listen to, please send me an email at storiesmothertold@gmail.com or on Instagram at storiesmothertold. Do not forget to share the podcast with a friend and subscribe so you do not miss an episode. For all your Black history needs, check out tuntimo.com. That's TUNTIMO.com. And if you're someone who enjoys scary African stories and you want to know more about the scary urban legends, check out the podcast African Horror Stories. Until next time, see ya.